Can I reach you out before you get busy?
More like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just check. Testing. I'm asking the people on the live stream.
Oh, yeah.
If the audio is being captured over there. Yeah. So I'm just waiting for some people in the live stream to tell me how the audio is. Please let me know. Can you guys in the live stream hear this?
It says not good yet.
Not good yet, not clear. Okay. I have to I'll bring the mic closer.
So David, he's one of the leaders.
Okay.
Give him the mic.
Okay, sure. It says
All right.
it says I can hear you well enough now. Mark Caesar is saying I can hear you well enough now.
Okay, you can hear now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Get this out of the way. Is that better? I know you guys can hear, but we're live streaming at the same time, so we're just wondering if this is being captured. All right, I think we're good. Yeah.
We're gonna get started. Okay. Hi. Okay. Just quick. Hello, and welcome to Sal San Marco here in this wonderful Sunday afternoon here in Ottawa. My name is Robert Hamilton. I'm the admin and moderator for the Atheist Republic Ottawa Consulate Facebook page. I'm also a member of the board of the Humanist Association of Ottawa. And so on behalf of those two, I welcome you here to the South San Marco on this wonderful day. I just want to make a quick introduction, really quick, because most of us want to hear what Armin has to say, so this will be really, really short. We have a couple of very notable people here in the room today. David Rand, founder and president of Atheist Freethinkers, is here. Stand up, David. Hello. David is with the International Association of Free Thought, or the Association Internationale des Libres Pensées. And also is Olivier Goulet here? Olivier is here? Okay, well, we're going to hear from the Gatineau Humanist Association. But anyway, there are other people here as well. And we have people from Center for Inquiry Canada Ottawa chapter here as well. Just wave your hand. People, hello, hi. And we're here to talk. Armin's here to talk about Enlightenment under attack. And I just want to make a quick shout-out sentence about HAO. Since 1968, the Humanist Association of Ottawa has strived for a world where reason and compassion guide public policy and social values to enable the fulfillment of human potential. HAO promotes the cause of humanism, fosters the humanist community in Ottawa, and advocates for a secular public domain. Atheist Republic is an international worldwide organization, which Armin will no doubt tell you much more about. And Atheist Republic provides community support, informative content, and amplifies the voice of those who need protection, especially in countries where people feel isolated simply because of their lack of belief. So we're going to have the format for today is that Armin will do an initial presentation for 40 or 45 minutes or so, whatever. Then we'll do a short pause. There's some water over there. And then we'll do a Q&A. And we'll have a chance to have an interesting chat and ask Armin some questions. And that'll be for another 45 minutes or so. And then at the end, we can, if you want to have a chat with Armin in the lobby after the event, Armin will be more than happy to speak with you. So, with all that ado having been gone through, I introduce you to Armin Navabi, founder and president of, no,
Just-
not CEO, no,
Yeah.
founder of Atheist Republic, Armin.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, and thank you for being here. So, when I was still in Iran, I remember I discovered this letter online. It was an open letter to Ayatollah Khamenei, and it was very critical of him. And I could not believe somebody had the balls to write that. That person did not live in Iran. Obviously, if they wrote the letter openly to Khamenei, they wouldn't be free. They would be in jail. They would probably be on death row. But still, for me, that was amazing. To me, that was amazing. Right? I could not believe that such a letter even exists. Somebody had dared to write something so critical and put it up in public. To understand how significant that is, if you, in Iran, it's the opposite of what you think. You would think if somebody goes after God, they would be more in trouble than if they go after Muhammad. And if they go after Muhammad, they would be more in trouble than if they go after the supreme religious leader. But it's actually completely the other way around. So this was, I was at that time an atheist. I was open to a few friends of mine about my anti-Islamic views, but even even though I was, my parents thought I was going to get myself killed, but by constantly, openly telling my views to I didn't say it publicly, but I said it to a lot of my close friends and even some teachers. But even I could not believe somebody would say something against Khamenei. That's like holier than God. So I printed that letter, I put it in my school bag, and I just went in the streets and I just had the letter in my bag, and had it, and I was just walking around with it. I don't know how I can explain to you guys what it feels like. My heart was racing the entire time. The idea that I have this letter, and I'm walking with this letter publicly in the street, and nobody knows that I have this letter. Like, I have this thing in my bag. And it was like an adrenaline rush. And then I got back home, and I took it out of my bag and tore it into so many little pieces, and I tried to flush it down the toilet. It wasn't flushing. I kept on trying. Took it out, smaller pieces, flush it again. So when I came to Canada, the idea of being able to say whatever the fuck I want, and nobody can do anything. Wow, anything. That's amazing. So I started, my activism took it became much bigger, it became much more daring. I thought this is what I was waiting for all my life, to be able to say whatever I want. So Atheist Republic started growing faster because when I started Atheist Republic, I was still in Iran, and I was anonymous. And I was the person behind it. I didn't let anybody know who it was, obviously. But because when I came to Canada, because I could be open about it, it seemed like the growth would become exponential, because a lot of people relate to people more than logos and brands and organizations. So that really helped. But at some point in more recent years, I realized that people actually are introducing some lines. I think most people here are familiar with them. They're like, these are the things that you don't get to say. And I'm like, no, hold on, wait, what? No, this is Canada. We get to say whatever we want. Yeah, but maybe not this and that. I'm like, okay, tell me what are the things I'm not allowed to say? Because those are exactly the things that I'm gonna go say. Because I don't think a lot of people here that are born here or raised here understand the significance of this right and how important it is to keep guarding it. And that's why I wanted to know what those lines are. To cross them, to make sure I cross them, whatever the lines are. Whatever the lines are, I wanted to cross them. So one line was, don't burn the Quran. That's not right. I'm like, okay, let's burn the Quran. So I recorded myself burning the Quran. And I got attacked by atheists, a lot of ex-Muslim, anti-Islamic atheists. They told me like, okay, that's way too far. That's like, no, I mean, come on. Like, we support you in your anti-Islam, anti-religion narratives, but come on, this is, Nazis used to burn the Quran, burn books. I went through all I was planning to burn it, and a lot of people told me not to, and I went through all the lists of the things that they told me why I'm not supposed to burn the Quran. And I tried to address them all in that video. What do you guys think was the number one thing that they objected? Do you know that? Can you guess?
You don't offend Muslims.
No, that's what No. The number one objection to this was carbon emissions. That's the number one pushback I was getting. So I started the video by showing that I've donated to offset 1 ton worth of carbon emissions. That is way more than what I would produce from burning the Quran. So that's how I started the video. And then people say it's hateful towards Muslims. So what I did was I took a copy of my own book, Why There Is No God, and I burned that alongside the Quran to be like, well, if this is hateful towards Muslims, am I being hateful to myself as well? People said it's censorship. I took my phone and showed them how many free Quran apps there are, how easy it is to access the Quran, and like who am I removing access to the Quran. I also showed them that I had 3 copies of the Quran, and 2 of them were too expensive and pretty for me to ever burn, and I love them. I'm not going to burn them, I'm only going to burn the cheapest one. And I also mentioned, they said this is like, the Nazis used to burn books. Like, the Nazis burned other people's books. This is my book. This is my property. I paid for this. I can do whatever I want with my property. I'm not removing other people's access to their books. The whole point of when the Nazis were burning books, the whole point was to suppress information, to remove people's access to knowledge. I'm burning my own book. I didn't go steal someone else's book. Nobody now doesn't have access to the Quran because of what I did. The reason why I keep doing these is because people seem to be not really understanding why we have certain codes and morals and standards. The whole point of these is to reduce harm. But when people introduce new lines, and I look at those lines and I'm like, is this reducing harm to anybody, this line? If it's not, then it's useless. It has to be challenged. It has to be destroyed, and it's destroyed by more people crossing it. We did that very effectively with Draw Muhammad Day, right? Look, now Muslims are not as triggered as they used to be with drawing Muhammad. It used to be, you draw Muhammad, and it was chaos. Then people said, okay, we shouldn't draw Muhammad. And a lot of people were like, no, we should draw Muhammad more. And they turned it into an annual event. And look, nobody cares anymore. People are desensitized to drawing Muhammad. Now they need to be desensitized over burning the Quran. So, when it comes to Islam and ideas, I don't think there's any line. But when it comes to people, and the harm that you can cause people, I draw a lot of lines. And I think my lines are better than their lines. And I lose allies from both sides. So when I go after Islam like this, a lot of my more left-leaning people start abandoning me. But when it comes to Muslims themselves, individuals, then they call me an extremist on the other end. And I start losing allies from the right. For example, one example is when in Iraq they had these kangaroo courts for ISIS members. And they had 20-minute hearings, sometimes less, for these people that were allegedly either ISIS or married to ISIS. And they were listening, no lawyers, nothing, 20-minute hearings and then execution. What the hell? Where are these people's lawyers? Why is nobody defending these ISIS members? And people are like, what the hell, Armin? You're defending ISIS members now? I'm like, yeah, I'm defending their right to due process, to lawyers, to proper hearing. And like, oh, okay, so they're like, Armin is a terrorist sympathizer. He wants to defend ISIS. Like, you can't win with these people. You're either too anti-Islamic or you are ISIS sympathizer. But people don't understand, how can you burn the Quran and defend ISIS members at the same time? Like, why is this confusing? These are certain values, these are Enlightenment values, right? Freedom of expression, due process, there's nothing contradictory. Because people can't seem to separate people from their ideas, they think these are contradictory positions. They're not. They're thinking along lines left, right, pro-Muslim, anti-Muslim, and they think you're all over the place. But if you think about it from the perspective of a set of ideas that were popularized, again, not invented, but popularized in Western Europe around 1700s, 1800s, maybe in 1600s, these ideas work. They seem to work everywhere where they become standard practice. They seem to save people out of misery. They seem to save people from hunger, from disease. They seem to make countries more advanced than anybody else that is not adopting these values. And they were, initially when they were popularized, they weren't, it was just based on philosophy and arguments like, I don't know, coming from God or nature, but now we don't even have to do that. We have data now. We know these ideas work. And we know that every country, we have proof and evidence that every country that is using these values, and the more they're using them, the more they benefit from it. So it's scary to see that people more and more don't seem to understand the importance of these values, and in fact are moving against them. And it's interesting because people that were originally or historically the champions of these ideas seem to also now be moving against them. So when it comes to Enlightenment values, for me it was expected for Christianity to be against them, for Islam to be against them, for right-wing conservatives to be against them. But when all of a sudden left-wing also started to take positions, the people that historically were supposed to be the champions of women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, minority rights, many civil rights movements, these were the best of activism for Enlightenment values. So when they take a position against freedom of expression and become censorial, and they go against from all these rights and from all the values that the Enlightenment era has given us, the most important one was freedom of expression, because the rest of them depend on it. All the other ones are depending on this first one. It's the reason why the thinkers of the Enlightenment movement also emphasize that the most. So, for left-wing people to go after the most important one seemed like a huge betrayal, and seemed to me like we need cheerleaders of Enlightenment values. We need to make a movement for this. So, you have the left promoting illiberal values, but let's be clear though, because this is not just an attack from the left, it's also an attack from the right. Historically, it has been mostly right-wingers that are challenging Enlightenment values, right? And given that the left-wingers are more right now in mainstream, we are challenging them, but we're not under any illusion. We know that if mainstream was right-wing right now, they would be as censorial, probably more than left-wingers, right? So every time we keep on attacking the regressive left or the far left, people think that we're too critical of the left and not the right. But the thing is that we are, it's just that they are not right now in a position to be censorial. They would be if they were in power. The reason why left-wing censorship right now is a bigger issue than right-wing censorship on a global scale is not because they are more harmful. It's because they control dialogue right now on a global scale. The regressive leftist philosophy is highly overrepresented in Silicon Valley, in a small little city that comes up with community standards that influences what we get to say and what we don't get to say on a global scale, all determined in this tiny little place. Right? So activism in India, in Philippines, in Bangladesh, in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, it's all determined by a group of people right here, and they are very much under the influence of regressive ideology in such a deep-rooted way that they don't even realize it. A lot of times they actually think that they are protecting minorities while protecting the oppressors of minorities in other countries, right? What happens in politics of the United States is completely different from who's the oppressor in Iran, who's the oppressor in Pakistan. When I get a letter from Twitter saying that I broke the law in Pakistan because of a tweet and I need to go get a lawyer, I'm like, what the hell, Twitter? You're threatening me because I broke Pakistani law? Tell me what those laws are because I want to break them more. I'm in Canada, why do I have to follow Pakistani laws? So yeah, Muslims are a minority and they are wronged a lot in many places. In Western countries, there's not Islamophobia, but anti-Muslim bigotry. Please keep using that word because that is real, okay? Anti-Muslim bigotry is a real thing. Just don't call it Islamophobia, please, okay? Islam's an idea. But anti-Muslim bigotry is real. It's huge in North America, it's huge in Western Europe, but it's even bigger in India. It's much bigger in China, something that regressive leftists don't care about because it's not white people hurting Muslims. It has to be white people hurting Muslims to start caring. Because they don't care about Muslims, they just care about their narratives. But it's a real thing, but they're not. Muslims are not oppressed in Pakistan. So what's the point of you defending? I mean, even if you don't understand that Muslims and Islam are two different things, and you want to protect minority, what's the point of defending that in Pakistan? I mean, I understand why, but we're going to have to fight against it. So left-wingers are supporting illiberal values. Again, not all, hashtag not all left-wingers, not all right-wingers. This is, a lot of people say, like, I'm right-wing, I'm not like that, I'm left-wing, I'm not, yeah, good. But you have to understand that there's a problem in your movement. You have to address it. When it comes to even the Enlightenment values, when it comes to right-wing people, right? The problem that we have among a lot of right-wingers is that they refer to Enlightenment values as Western values. And I'm very picky about this. I don't call them Western values. They like to call it Western values because they use the success of Western countries as a way to try to show superiority to other countries and to create a sense of other people that don't deserve to be here or don't deserve to be, that are inferior in some way. But to me, these values, it's not about the people, it's about the values. These values work no matter where you use them, right? It works in the West, it works in Japan, it works in South Korea, compare that to North Korea. It works in Hong Kong, compare Hong Kong to China. They work everywhere. It's not Western. That's why I call it Enlightenment values, because it's easier to promote, it's easier to export in countries where they need it the most. It's also not Western values because Western values are not just Enlightenment values. Western values also include Nazism. Western values also include communism. Marx was in Germany. So it's not all of the Western values, right? It's Enlightenment values. Makes it easier to sell. If you call it Enlightenment values, then it's more accurate. When it comes to Islam and Christianity, see, this is a failure of not selling Enlightenment ideology and Enlightenment values. We lack greatly in the PR department, and when we don't sell it, other people come and try to claim it. Christians say the West is great because of Judeo-Christian values. These values that make the West great came out right out of the Bible. I keep looking for them. I can't find them. I keep asking them to show me where in the Bible supports freedom of expression, where does it support due process, where all this stuff come. Like, the more I read, the more it seems like it's the other way around. But they managed to sell this idea that it's Judeo-Christian values that make the West great. And I'm like, why? Where? Like, the only argument that they have is like, well, the countries that became great happen to also be the countries that had Christianity. Well, then with that argument, Nazism is also Judeo-Christian values, because the countries that have had Nazism came out of or happen to also be Christian. So are you going to go there? Because we can go there. As Muslims also, this is less successful than Christian, but we have now the Islamic Reform movement. They are pretending that these values were always there in the Quran. You just have to read it properly. Again, keep looking, can't find them. It's dangerous though. Both of the Islamic Reform movement and people like Jordan Peterson and such suggest that Judeo-Christian values are amazing. These are, and try to misrepresent what the Quran and the Bible actually teach. A lot of people support it because, we can look at the Bible in a different way, we can look at the Quran in a different way. What's the harm in that? Well, the harm in that is that now you're promoting the Bible and the Quran, and these are values that are against the Enlightenment. These are values that hurt people. Just if you're promoting, it's kind of like, it's saying like, hey, let's not throw away Nazism. We can read the Mein Kampf in a different way. Let's not throw out the baby out with the bathwater. It could be like, Aryans being superior. Aryan, it's not about the race. We could say like Aryan means like the humanity within all of us. That's stuff. Everybody could tap into the inner Aryan. It's not about race. You could bullshit people around like, why would you do that? This is a book, the Quran and Bible are books that promote slavery. They're anti-woman, they're anti-freedom. The Quran is a book that tells you that you can beat your wife, tells you that you can take slaves in war, tells you that a lot of people here deserve to be tortured for a very, none of these ideas would be tolerated if it was packaged under anything other than religion. We don't need to reform these things. We don't need to look at them in a different way. We need to get rid of them. So, by the way, when I said, I'm actually hopeful that we can survive this whole censorial attitude that people on the left have, because I do think on average, it's going to be more, again, we're going to go back to the right-wingers being more censorial. I think this whole regressive attitude that the left is experimenting with is going to die soon, but it's going to do a lot of damage while it's here. And one close example to that is what happened with, do you guys know about the Red Scare? The Red Scare in the United States when it comes to people being afraid of, everybody was being accused of being a communist, right? Everybody was being accused of, like, you just had, I had this picture of you shaking this guy's hand at that meeting. Communist. You were like, you were talking about labor rights, communist. Okay, the government was involved. People were being investigated. People were losing their jobs. And we looked at that right now, and we were like, well, that was ridiculous. And I think we're going to do this with the regressive leftist. People are constantly being accused of being a Nazi. How many people here have been accused of being Nazi? No, not just me? Okay. All right, diet Nazi recently. So people are being accused of being bigots, Nazis, white supremacists, left and right. And it's just very similar. Another interesting thing about similarity of the Red, it was even worse with the Red Scare, right? Because so far, at least here, we haven't had the government arresting people and we're investigating people because of the accusations of bigotry. So, not yet, at least. But Another similar thing with the Red Scare is that people were really afraid that the communists are going to come and take over the United States. It's just like now people think Nazis are going to come back and take over the United States. And now we know that the communists were not in a position at all to take over the United States. It was an exaggeration. But the few spies that did exist, Russian spies that did exist, massively benefited from all this false accusations left and right, because it was so hard to find them, because everybody was a spy. Everybody could have been a spy. And again, the similarity is very interesting because Nazis, which were very irrelevant until recently, are now having a comeback, and they're loving this whole paranoia. And it's hard for us to actually identify real Nazis, neo-Nazis, because if you identify them, they're like, well, everybody is a neo-Nazi these days. We're like, no, you are a neo-Nazi. Like, we know you are a white supremacist. We're like, yeah, sure. So is this guy. Like, they're getting under the radar. Like, they are so few in numbers, and they're becoming so relevant. A symbol, apparently a Nazi symbol recently. Do you guys see that? They are trolling everybody. They're like, okay, let's make the OK symbol, let's just start using it until everybody panics, and they ban the OK symbol. They managed to do that. And then, okay, let's go with the clown symbol now. So they, with a very few number of people that are actually supporting ideology, this panic is helping them become more influential, and people will find them now more, and they will grow thanks to people that claim to be against them. So, but the thing is that the people on the regressive left, they don't care, they don't want them to go away, they want the far right to become bigger. They both need each other, right? The far right loves the regressive left because the more people find the regressive left ridiculous, the more people are going to find the far right and are going to join them. And the regressive left loves the far right. The more the far right becomes relevant, the more the regressive left is going to be like, see, this is why we do what we do. So they're kind of allies. But for this to work, they constantly have to find ways to be offended. Because in countries, so freedom of expression is challenged in countries, like in Islamic countries or some other countries, with laws. And now apparently in England as well, which is fucking ridiculous. But in other countries where they don't have the law yet on their side, to be able to limit expression, they have to get offended, and they have to get a lot of people to get offended with them. They're offense junkies. And the problem with the reason why I think the reversal left is not going to advance for long is because when you make a big noise about something that's supposed to be offensive, at some point people are going to be like, yeah, whatever, you guys are too ridiculous. And they have to move on to something else. And eventually they're going to run out of things to be offended over. So the idea of accusation, it's so sad because these are movements that the left was so good at. Like fighting for women's rights, fighting for gay rights, fighting for minority rights. It was supposed to be about the victims. Now it's about just signaling to your tribe that, look, I'm getting offended properly enough to be in this tribe. It's a signal, right? And the louder you are, the better. And it's really hurting the actual victims because the new generation, Generation Z, for example, is coming and they see how ridiculous this is. And they're gonna take these movements less seriously. These are movements that we need to claim back. But one community that's going to suffer a lot from this, I think, is the transgender community. Because now the new lines, it used to be baseless accusations of racism, misogyny, homophobia. But they overuse these so much, and also Islamophobia, that people are not taking it very seriously anymore. People realize that, okay, too many people are being accused of being anti-Muslim bigots. It seems like half of them, at least half of them, are not serious. So it's not working. Like people are like, oh, we're offended. I'm like, okay, whatever. So they're moving on to new things to be offended over. So Islamophobia is way too 2018. So we have transphobia is a new red line, and also anti-Semitic accusations. These are the new things to get offended over. And again, I'm scared because even if this is temporary, the trans rights movement needs an actual movement. And think about all the things that benefited the gay rights movement. Think about all the progress that the gay rights movement has made so far. Again, when I say progress, a lot of people are like, oh, you think homophobia is over? No, I know it's not done, but there has been dramatic progress in the past 30, 40 years when it comes to accepting gay marriage and all that. Like, people didn't predict this rapid of progress at all, even 20 years ago. So we're very hopeful with the same thing with trans rights movements. But look, if you look at Generation Z, which is the generation that we need to target, they associate trans rights movement with the regressive left, with the PC culture, with the woke cult. And they think it's all ridiculous. They think, and this was the trans rights turn to shine. And it's not being taken seriously by the next generation. The progress that we could have made is lost. And the progress now that we have made when it comes to fighting anti-Semitic views is also going to get a major hit, especially in places where fighting Judaism as an ideology is very important, especially in Israel. We have atheist activists in Israel that we need to support, especially with the rise of the right wing. I've been in Israel, and I can tell you the religious people there are very, very good at getting mixed with the government and influencing people's lives. Secularists in Israel, their lives are being influenced in a very disproportionate way by Orthodox Jews, even though most people in Israel are secular. So I always say that the greatest threat to Israel is not Islam or Islamic extremism, is Jewish extremism. And this is getting me into a lot of trouble. And you know how a lot of people come to me and say, like, I mean, I can't speak against Islam, you're an extremist, you should talk about it against Islam. And I was like, no, everybody should speak against Islam. But now I'm going to my atheist Jewish friends and I'm like, listen, can you speak more about against Judaism? Because every time I speak against Judaism, so I'm using them the same way I've been used against Islam. But no, we should all be able to say okay, this will get me into a lot of trouble. But Judaism is a race supremacist religion. It's a barbaric, backward, violent religion. I mean, if I say the idea of white supremacy needs to die, it needs to end, you're like, yeah, of course. But if I say the idea of Jewish race supremacy needs to die, needs to end, you're like, okay. But now if I replace that with Judaism, which is an ideology that promotes Jewish supremacy, if I say Judaism needs to die, you're like, oh shit. Are we still streaming? Because YouTube probably is going to cut this. These words are going to trigger YouTube. Yeah. YouTube doesn't like me. But is that something controversial to say? Is that something bad to say? Like, it's religion. People are like, oh, Armin is anti-Semitic against Jewish people. Like, what the hell? I didn't say anything about Jewish people. Most Jewish people don't believe in this nonsense. I'm not talking about Jewish people, I'm talking about the ideology. You're like, yeah, but that's hateful. I'm like, read the book. Like, y'all drown the entire world because they this mass genocide, like, is it really hard to be against this book? Is that really that controversial to say that this is like not a book that needs to survive as a guideline? I got just last week into trouble. I don't know if you guys saw that. I posted a picture in Berlin with next to, on top of, to be fair, a Jewish memorial, Holocaust memorial, for like, so offended. And I was like, why is this offensive? I feel like, oh, it's a memorial to the Holocaust, like, okay. And we should take pictures with memorials? They're like, no, it's offensive. I'm like, okay, why? Like, it's disrespectful. Well, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. Like, but it is disrespectful to me. I'm like, well, don't look at it. Like, who is it hurting? Like, people seem to not understand the whole point of having standards and norms is to stop harm, to reduce harm. Like, hey, okay, so look at this picture. Do you think I'm against the victims of Holocaust? Like, no. Like, well, isn't that, yeah, okay, you're against Holocaust, I'm against Holocaust, we're good, right? No, you should remove that picture. Like, no, fuck you, I'm gonna keep it. And that's, again, the reason I wouldn't even post a picture, it's not that important, but now that people are offended by it and demanding me to remove it, now I might even post more pictures with Holocaust memorial. I'm gonna get into a lot of trouble, people. Like, I'm not gonna get invited to any events if I keep going with this rate. I had a friend that told me, I told him, okay, I think gender is a spectrum. This is what I think right now. I don't think it's mostly binary, but even if it's mostly binary, even if you have a few people that are not binary, that makes gender as a whole a spectrum. And I think that, but I said, okay, I think that's right, gender is a spectrum. But if science proves otherwise, because I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but if research and scientists prove me that I'm wrong, I'm going to switch my position to saying, okay, I was wrong, gender is not a spectrum, it's binary. I'm willing to change my opinion. And people are like, okay, that's transphobic. You should not think that gender is binary. I'm like, wait, no, that's it. You didn't hear what I said. I'm agreeing with you. We're on the same side. You think gender is a spectrum? I think it's a spectrum as well. I'm just saying that obviously with more information, I'm going to change my opinion. Like, that's hateful. Wait, is it now bigoted to change your opinion based on evidence? Like, that's the standard that I lost a friend over this. A friend that I was agreeing with on the fact that gender is a spectrum, but his position was that that's a position you should always hold. You should not change your opinion. I have changed my opinion on everything if I'm proven otherwise. But these are the standards. Again, it's not about protecting trans people. It's not about protecting Muslims. It's not about protecting Jewish people. It's about finding new sources of offense. And these people are addicts. So like they're looking online, like, I haven't been offended today. And they have dealers, right? There are people that they're actively looking for the ways to be offended. And like, okay, where's my dose for today? And they need to be provided with that. Again, that's how they feel relevant. One way I know that this is not about victims is, in an atheist republic, we have been really going after China because of the way that they treat Muslims. Right now, I don't know if you guys know, there's more than 1 million, or around 1 million, I don't know if it's more than 1 million, Muslims in concentration camps for the crime of being Muslim. And we, an atheist republic, are going after an atheist state for their human rights violation for the way they treat Muslims. And you know who's not talking about this as much? Muslims. Relatively. There are some people that are talking about it. And even more, the guardians, the self-proclaimed guardians of Muslims, the regressive leftists, they don't care about China. They don't care about if Indians mistreating Muslims. They're brown. They have defined their enemy as the white supremacists. You have to be somehow associated with that. If it's in New Zealand, if it's a white supremacist killing Muslims, It's a huge crime. But if it's even if it's 100 times more Muslims being attacked, but it's not by a white supremacist, we don't give a shit because we don't give a shit about Muslims. Again, it's about identity. It's about, this is my tribe. These are the certain phrases that my tribe says. These are the things that my tribe is offended by. And you recognize the patterns. So you have to define your identity based on the in-group and also by recognizing who's the enemy. And the enemy also, you recognize them by certain signals, by certain things you say. Doesn't matter if they're actually bigots or not bigots, as long as you hear there's certain things, anti-Islam, okay, probably, you just put them in a category. Because a lot of defining, when it comes to defining your identity, it's a lot of times about defining the enemy as well, and defining your identity by being opposed to that enemy. So if it's not that enemy you recognize, it is not worth making a move against. And again, this is why a lot of times arguing with these people doesn't work. Because it's not about what's true or what's causing harm or what works. It's about you becoming a hero to your tribe and signaling to them that you belong there. And because it's not about what makes sense and what doesn't, a lot of times it's a waste of time trying to argue with these people. Not that we shouldn't try, I try. So my event at Montreal University in Calgary was cancelled because it was right after the New Zealand shootings. And it doesn't seem right to have somebody come speak against Islam right after New Zealand shootings. And I always felt like, okay, imagine if we did that the other way around. Imagine every time we had an Islamic terror attack, the university, let's cancel everything Islam related in the university. I would be defending the Muslims in that position. This imam that was talking, he had nothing to do with that attack. Why are you canceling his event? I went into, in Vancouver, I went to a mosque. It was open mosque day. They were trying to introduce people to Islam. I went there, and I was very friendly, everything was great until people started recognizing me. And this other guy that was running the mosque, because they didn't have an imam yet, he took me to the side and he said, listen, I know you have problems with Islam and stuff, but please don't come and shoot these people here one day. These are good people. I'm like, holy shit. I was actually very sad for him because I feel like these people are living under so much stress. That's kind of scary. Imagine if this guy actually comes here into mosque every time, I think that there's going to be a shooting. I really felt sad. I tried to no, don't worry. It's not like that. I really tried to calm down, but I also felt a little angry. But I didn't tell him. I wanted to tell him, maybe I should have told him, that imagine if you came to our event and I took you to the corner and I was like, listen, I know you're a Muslim, but please don't come shoot these people here one day. That would not be a reasonable thing to say. That would be kind of hurtful thing to say. We have to introduce this idea that just because you're an anti-Islam critic, are you really going to think that I have a potential of shooting Muslims because I'm an anti-Islam critic? For their sake, I think we need to reach out to them more because it's a very stressful situation to be in. So, what are we? How much time do I have? Okay. So what are we? These are the things that I'm trying to actively find ways to fight back, right? And it's becoming more and more important, especially it seems to be these values, these ideas, the Enlightenment values, doesn't have that many champions, right? Doesn't have that many champions on the left, doesn't have that many champions on the right, doesn't even have that many champions among atheists, and not among Muslims, not among Christians. And most people do not see these, are not revering these values in a way that other people are claiming credit for all the great things that has happened, all the rights that we enjoy today, all the peace that we enjoy, all the the results of the scientific method, all the government accountability, all of these stuff that made lives for so many people a lot better. Given that not that many people are defending the values that are responsible for this, it's becoming easier and easier to take them away. And I think we're in a desperate need for some people specifically to become cheerleaders and guardians of these ideas. We need to find ways to celebrate these ideas. I mean, when it comes to freedom of expression, the only method I found is to, every time I see a red line, to cross it. By the way, if I keep crossing these red lines and I become too controversial, please still invite me to these events. Like some people are going to be like, okay, we agree with Armin, but he's getting too controversial, I guess. But I'm going to keep crossing them, and I think when it comes to Judaism specifically, I'm going to lose a lot of allies. And I don't know why, because it seems pretty obvious to me. So that's one thing, just cross the lines, that people just seem to just draw on the line without nobody seems to be asked, like, go away this line here, nobody seems to care. So I'm crossing them as much as I can, and I encourage you to please, if more people cross these lines, it becomes less of a taboo to cross them. So people like me feel less alone, less controversial. Again, I'm not being controversial for the sake of being controversial. I'm being controversial about things that shouldn't be controversial. Like when I went to the gate, this stopped working. This thing. This thing.
There's the back one. Where's the back one?
No, it's right there.
Testing.
I'll just speak louder.
Testing.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. When I went to the gay pride parade in Vancouver, I had a sign saying, Allah is gay. And I hold that and I went and I got so many death threats after that. I had to move. I had the police at my place. And people are like, okay, Armin, this is offensive. Like, if you think Allah is gay is offensive, you're saying being gay is an insult. That's what you're saying. And again, why did I do that? It's because people said you shouldn't. I don't understand what's wrong with it. I don't understand who's hurting, so I did that to make a point. This is not hurting anybody, so I'm going to do it every time. Again, every red line needs to be crossed. By the way, the times in my life that I got the most death threats was every time I brought something Islamic and something LGBT related, and I put it together. That seems to hit a nerve with Muslims. Like when it comes to burning the Quran, I didn't get a fraction of the death threats. That when it came to two different events. One was when I took the Kaaba, we photoshopped the black drapes, we replaced it with the rainbow flag, and we posted that. That was crossing a huge line for a lot of Muslims. I got the most death threats for that. So the Quran burning, not that much. But then this, going to the gay pride, saying Allah is gay. Allah is gay. That was no. I had to move. That's how bad it got. So, crossing lines, claiming back movements, right? We cannot let the regressive, again, most of the left is sane. Most of the right are not bigots. We're talking on both sides, we're talking about a loud minority that is taking control. And the same people on the right and the same people on the left, you can't say like, I'm not like that. That's not enough. You have to admit that there's a problem in your movement. The right-wing people, if you're not bigots, you have to admit that there's a lot of transphobia, a lot of racism, a lot of misogyny in your camp. Just admit it. Even if it's not you, it's there. Left-wing people, if you're for free speech, if you're not for censorship, again, these are not the same thing. Because when I get deplatformed from universities, or if it's not public, or if our Facebook page gets removed, these are not against free speech, but it is censorial. But a lot of people that on the left have to admit they have a censorship problem on their side. They have to admit it, even if that's not what they believe in themselves. So, again, a lot of these movements from the left needs to be reclaimed before they crash and burn with the regressive left. Because the regressive left is going to crash and burn. This cannot last for much longer, I hope. I hope I'm right about that. But while they're crashing and burning, they're taking down some movements with them. And they're going to cause lasting damage even after they're gone. It's like Trump, for example. He's going to be gone, but he chose a whole bunch of judges that are going to stay there forever. But then again, the regressive left is going to have, I don't know how we can say back the trans right movement, to bring it back, because they need it. Even homophobia is growing in Generation Z. New studies are showing that among the people that thought, we kept on thinking that liberal values, like accepting other people, this is something that's just going to keep getting better and better, because the direction is always going to be progress. New data shows that homophobia is growing in Generation Z. How is that happening? Well, because the methods that you're using is making them see everything that you stand for ridiculous. So we can't just like look at the regressive left. I mean, these are people who are dumb, offense junkies. We need to actually take over the movements and do our activism. We need to do gay rights activism, continue doing gay rights activism, continue doing women rights activism, continue doing trans rights activism, but our way. We cannot just point to problems. We actually have to provide alternative ways of doing this. Another thing we need to do, which this is something that is much bigger and much more difficult, is to start selling Enlightenment values. And again, this is something that I get pushback from the atheist community, because they keep saying like, oh, now you're becoming like a religion. Now you're telling people how to live, what are the good values, how to be moral. And again, this is something I was sensitive about for a long time. Every time, Atheist Republic is the world's largest online atheist group, right? And we are responsible for a lot of people abandoning religion, but we're also responsible for people that have already abandoned religion to come find their community, find other people. And a lot of times people come and say, okay, how do atheists live? What do I do? Who do I follow? What are some guidelines? What's moral, what's not moral? And we often, for the past 15 years, we told them, like, hey, that's for you to find out. That's not atheism. Atheism is just lack of belief in God. We're here to find each other, but you go figure out the best way to live for yourself. We don't offer that. And the example I used to give is, imagine if somebody came and said, imagine if I had an insurance company and my house burned down, and I went to the insurance company and didn't give me any money. I realized it was a scam. And now my friend is going and they're looking for insurance and they're considering the same company. And I tell them, don't go with them, that's a scam. And my friend comes to me, oh, like, okay, then you give me insurance. I'm like, what? I don't have insurance. I just know they're a scam. You go find insurance. And like, no, you're telling me this is a scam, so give me insurance. I'm like, I don't have insurance. So when it comes to the atheist movement, my analogy was, we just know these religions are scams. They don't have any good guides for you to follow. You go find what's the best way to live, but we don't have that. We just know that this is a scam. But after more than a decade of people constantly asking us for some guide, I'm thinking that maybe we should provide. I mean, if you have a huge community of people that realize that the insurance company is a scam, maybe we could come up with something that we know works. It's based on science, based on evidence, based on statistics. It's not based on faith, not based on revelation. We could actually come and say, well, if you're looking for something, these are the values and these are the ideas that seem to work. And what are they? They're Enlightenment values. And we're not just saying that, we actually have data to back it up. So maybe an atheist, maybe the world's largest atheist group would be a natural place to promote these ideas. I don't know, I'm going to try. The issue is, a lot of people, and maybe we could even become bigger if we start using these tactics, because I think one problem with the atheist community is that we are focusing mostly on people that think like us, think analytically, they want to have rational debates, they want to have They want to have a philosophy that is consistent with data, with objective reality. And a lot of them are individualists. A lot of them don't really need a sense of following anybody. They don't see the point of having rituals. Or maybe a community that makes them feel bigger than what they are. A lot of us are not like that. A lot of us, I'm not like that. I never saw the point of that, but the mistake that I made is because I don't see the point of these things, and because I don't have an emotional need for all of this, I also feel like more people should be like that. More people should not follow anybody. More people should, instead of seeing what emotionally appeals to. There we go. So, I asked her why, if she thinks why does she think God is real? She said because it says so in the Bible. I asked her, why does she think the Bible is real? The Bible is true. She said, well, because it came from God. And I tried to explain why that's circular. I mean, we all understand here why that's circular, why that's ridiculous, right? But I really tried to explain this. I came up with examples. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. It's a very, very simple concept. I felt like I was failing because I thought anybody, if I talked to them long enough, I could make them understand why this doesn't work. But it didn't work. But at some point, I gave up on that, and I started telling her, like, listen, let's say you're right, and I'm wrong. Let's say that Jesus is Lord, and I just don't get it. I'm failing at logic here, and I'm not understanding what your point. Do you think it's fair that I burn in hell forever because of this mistake? And she was like, no. Like, then why does God say that I have to burn in hell forever? She's like, I don't know. She could see, like, with no argument, she could see why there's a problem there. Right? Why did that work? Because, again, I'm not trying to insult people, okay? This is just reality. Most people are stupid. It's just true. I'm sorry. Okay? It's not insulting. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. Okay? Most people are stupid. It's not their fault. It's just reality. And I'm not giving up on stupid people. Stupid people deserve to be happy. Again, the fact that you guys are laughing, you're saying that you see stupid as an insult. I don't see stupid as an insult. Why do we have sympathy for people that can't use their leg properly? We have sympathy for people that can't use their eyes properly. And we help them. We're there for them. We don't make fun of them. We think that they deserve more attention and more help. But all of a sudden, when it comes to people that can't use their brain properly, we just think that they're inferior and deserving of ridicule. And when it comes to being able to use your mind properly, I think the people that can't do that deserve the most help and attention and sympathy. And I'm not willing to just abandon them because they're stupid. They're like, oh, these people are just stupid. It's not worth their time. No, this is most of the planet. This is most of the planet. We cannot just make this planet work just for intellectuals. We have to make it work for everyone. And the reason why the second argument works is because intelligence is not very common. But kindness, fairness, sympathy, these are common. And I'm not saying we shouldn't appeal to people's logic. We should keep doing that. I just think that there's some other desires and some other needs that we have that are positive that we could start appealing to and we start using. And that if religion has done one thing, is that it has shown us what a lot of these desires are. So religion has done a very good job at marketing. It's just been marketing bullshit. We could look at the marketing and learn from the marketing and sell a better product. Again, the need for rituals. This is something I dismissed because I don't need it. But if you look at information data, people need it. People need rituals. People need an identity that is defined based on a community that they belong to, and what brings that community together needs to be more than just, hey, let's get together. It needs to have history. It needs to be old, based on stories. They need heroes. They need villains. They need narratives. They need stories. Stories that makes that community much more significant than we're just people that are meeting with each other. And the good thing is, we have all of this in the Enlightenment, right? We have Voltaire, we have Rousseau, we have John Locke, we could even go to the Arab Enlightenment so that people can identify with Ibn Sina or Khayyam, right? So we have heroes, we have stories, we could go celebrate their stories, we could come up with this 10 values that we need to celebrate. Freedom of expression, due process, limited government, the scientific method. Why are these could be the things that we would be chanting. I don't know, somebody better than me that needs to figure out how to do this right. But this is a culture that we can create and celebrate and build a community. Again, because it's old also, I don't know why people want things to be old, but they want it. And we need to, again, because I think most people here don't have those desires, it's hard for them to see why we need to use these marketing tactics. But we need to actually look at evidence and see what most people respond to. And if we don't, and this is the final, these are going to be taken away from us. And they are being taken away from us. Again, these are values and ideas that have brought the highest number of people out of misery. People are starving less, dying from disease less, enjoying peace more, enjoying freedom more, enjoying equal rights more because of these and because of these values. And people don't know who they're supposed to be thanking. People don't know who deserves the credit, and that's why they're giving credit where credit is not due. We need to introduce people to these ideas. We need to tell them exactly how their life individually, why they're not dying in child labor right now, okay? Why they have clean water right now. Why the government is not coming after them right now because of what they said. We need to tell them who are the people that are responsible for their life that they're enjoying today. We need to reintroduce them to the people that they actually need to thank and appreciate. Because if we don't do that, if people don't know why they're living these lives and what are the values they need to celebrate, other people are going to come and they're going to take these values away from us. And we're going to be in real trouble if we don't defend them. Anyways, that's about it.
Thank you very much, Armin. The idea, I think, was we were going to have a quick break, although I know Armin was on a roll here in terms of the end. So, you okay with just a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll do a Q&A?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good for that?
Yeah, sure. I'll just stand here, and if anybody wants to during the 10-minute break to come.
Yeah, and then we'll do a Q&A. Armin has raised a lot of ideas here in terms of the attack on Enlightenment values, and I think that in a two-way discussion, even more ideas will become clear. So just a quick 10 minutes,
yeah.
And we'll have a quick Q&A. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna stay here with the live stream. Yeah.
Are you getting your copies?
Yeah. It was live for a few seconds. Okay, only 4 or 5 minutes of it. 45 minutes? 4 to 5 minutes. That's good.
That's a great idea. That's the perfect idea.
Are you okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Is it recording?
Yeah, is that okay? Okay. Send it. Well, yeah.
Is that okay if I take a picture of you and me and put it on Jerry Coyne's website?
Sure, yeah.
Because I'm on this thing all the time. I sleep now with
It's quite diverse.
readers and doing things that they enjoy. And this is my favorite thing, is to talk about atheism.
Okay, sounds good.
And I've never done this before, so
Yeah, let me help.
then I have to turn it around.
There we go.
My son made me get a cell phone.
Alright, ready?
Yeah. See you next time you're in Ottawa.
Sounds good.
Just gonna take a picture of that as well.
Would we out of it?
Yeah. But how do I turn it back? Oh, I see.
Over here, and then you wouldn't be in.
Well, I'm finished with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Picture of you in front of it. Handsome devil. You're a handsome devil.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Armin, I'm Ahmed. Nice to meet you finally. This is Junior.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Very nice talk. I actually follow you on Twitter. I'm glad we had a lot of similarities.
Yes.
And I was telling you that I like the fact that you had people from Australia.
It's a very hot place right now when it comes to explosive activity. Very
One of the reasons for that.
You are? Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely, and I love that. I love the fact that there's going to be more and more coming out because that part of the world is one of the first people who are into Islam.
Yes.
Very,
Suffer more from it than others.
absolutely.
What's your name again?
Well, my name is Ahmed. Yes, I'm Somalian.
Would you be interested in coming on the show and talking to us again?
I would be.
Yeah? Okay.
I would be. I have a problem.
Right?
I have obviously a lot of confidence.
Oh, so, okay.
But absolutely, I would love to get to talk to you. Ali Rizmi, right?
Yes.
It's a nice podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, I was hoping to get a picture with you.
Yes, of course.
If you don't want to give me my business card, because when Todd asked me to join, I'm notably, what do you call that? I'm a conferencer. I give conferences every week.
Okay.
And I notably address religion and the very topics we talk about. And I also do conference and debates against pastors and imams.
Right.
Like in Montreal and
Yes.
Toronto. I've had some of them run away, like live, in front of the crowd, like just run away.
There's an extra added to it when he does this Pan-Africanism and everything in
Yes.
Africa. It's almost as though they gave him a Bible and the Quran and they took the letter and used it. That's why Africa is the richest continent with the poorest people. Right? So that's one of the other things too is that Pan-Africanism.
I heard about Pan-Africanism. I was actually arguing with some Pan-African person.
Most of them, when it comes to religion, they don't know the topic and they say a lot of bullshit. I'll give you the perfect example. They will basically probably have black and brown people tell you about Malcolm X and tell you Malcolm X was a Muslim.
Right.
Now, you know why? When Malcolm X went to Saudi Arabia, they didn't tell him about slavery or blacks. They didn't tell him about treatment of blacks. They basically showed Malcolm X what he wants to see to come back with a vision of Islam as a brotherly religion in terms of everything, which also led to the separation of the nation of Islam.
Right.
So but Malcolm did not know any better. You see what I mean? It's kind of like when you have black and brown Christians, they tell you about Martin Luther King in 1963.
Right.
I have a dream. They don't tell you about Martin Luther King. 1968 was starting to wake up, and even the FBI was like, this guy is very more radical. Yeah. But this time to look at things very different. Anyways, I know you have other people. If you don't mind,
I found here quite a few years, so I had a really cool. Yeah. Anyway,
It's a cool video. I posted that on Twitter.
would you mind taking us a photo? Of
course, man. Here, I'll take it. One flash on.
Who's your why don't you kick to the next schedule? That's good. That's good. I want to be in the field. Yeah, another problem. Yeah, I can take a picture.
Okay, I got the photo. Can you take head to toe?
So, because he has nice shoes. That's why.
My sister is showing my shoes.
You guys are wonderful. have a bit more of a conversation because one of the reasons for so long is are coming out in the world. We like it's not a thing that no, but we're very so they will cling off to anything that comes in our culture comes to the heart. It doesn't right? It doesn't tell you what to do. One of the things that I think is like if you ever had religions, there's the Torah, right? And there's the Bible. Right. You know what the Bible means, right? Yeah. And you know what the Torah means, right? You know what the Quran means? The recitation. Like the law, these have actual application to humanity. Whereas the recitation, it's not. It's all just look, pretty is. So that's why they'll defend the looks of things as opposed to going to the crux of what Islam actually says. The message itself doesn't really matter. No. They'll tell you about Book of Siddiq because
let's have this conversation.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
I just did a brief conversation on Facebook podcast.
We're banging it on.
Yeah, so we just want to figure it out.
Sure. Right now.
My buddy, this one, he's saying that he's like, oh, this is the genre. Yeah, sometimes fix the date.
Yeah. Sorry if I'm not very responsive. I'm in the middle of moving.
Armin.
Hey, two. Nice photos.
Yeah, we're gonna have right
All right, I'll come to that.
2 minutes and we'll get the questions going.
Okay, sounds good.
If everyone could take their seats again, we're gonna start taking. Mr. Navabi is gonna start taking questions. Please find your way to your seats.
Rejection of women online, for example, like they say no thanks on Tinder. And after doing that study, I was thinking of maybe branching out to looking at that study.
One picture.
For whatever thing that I've done, and then you can do like content analysis, publish it in a peer-reviewed journal kind of thing.
One thing you would see is that the nature of the threats differ very much.
And that's what, yes, and also based on maybe the given thing that they did, because maybe you have different people who are offended about different things.
Right.
And so then, and we can kind of empirically measure that then.
Okay, yeah.
And then kind of get like a profile of what.
Okay, please leave your
You know what I mean?
I have a lot of comments about that, so.
Okay, so maybe I'll drop by and.
Sounds good.
And what we're going to do is, you can just raise your hand if you have a question, and I will come to you with the microphone. Try to make it a question, not a long, drawn-out comment. Okay? Okay. Who's first?
So I don't have a mic. Testing. Oh, that works.
Hi, Armin. That was a wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. Some of the Muslim community have criticized you for calling yourself ex-Muslim rather than, say, a reformed Muslim. And they think that by doing so, you would have reached a lot more people if you had not called yourself an ex-Muslim. What do you say to that?
I think that's ridiculous. And the whole point of is this still streaming?
Yes.
Okay. The idea, the fact is that leaving Islam has its own unique challenges compared to other religions, right? Just the same way that leaving, Mormonism or Jehovah's Witnesses has its own challenges as well. So by the way, for people that didn't hear the question is, why would you call yourself ex-Muslim? You would have been able to reach more people if you don't call yourself that. I mean, if you are a former drug addict, you might want to advertise that you're a former drug addict so they could help drug addicts. That's how you do it, right? And also, people that leave Islam, their experience is not the same as people that leave other religions. And that's why we build communities to find each other, to support each other. And we use the label ex-Muslim as a way to recognize that we went through similar experiences, and that's how we find each other. But the reason why many people don't call themselves ex-Christian is because they have, I guess, less challenges in leaving their religion compared to Muslims. But the challenge, you do notice that a lot of people do call themselves ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or ex-Mormon, because just like Muslims, they also go through a lot of challenges leaving those communities. Different from Muslims, but very difficult. The shaming and the abandonment by family and the community. So that's the same reason we have ex-Muslim, for the same reason they have their own ex-Jehovah's Witness or ex-Muslim Mormon communities, because most ex-Mormons can understand the unique challenges other ex-Mormons have to deal with, and that's why they use the label ex-Mormon so that they could find each other. And I don't see any problem with that. And also, another reason why we use the label ex-Muslim is to normalize leaving Islam. Leaving Islam is a lot more taboo than leaving other religion. So just by identifying as an ex-Muslim, you're helping normalize it. You're helping it, because Muslims being sensitive about the fact that people, and right now to a lot of Muslims, just the idea of leaving Islam is a shock. Just 5 years ago, most Muslims online didn't know that this is even possible. The main accusation is that it's impossible. You were never Muslim to begin with. It's impossible for somebody to be Muslim and then leave Islam. It's unimaginable. So now we're making it imaginable by calling ourselves Muslim. And by the way, I just have to give a shout out to Sarah Hayder. This weekend she was on Bill Maher, and the fact that the word ex-Muslim was used on such a mainstream level, on such a show, was a huge step for us normalizing ex-Muslim. Like Sarah Hayder, she probably did amazing. I haven't watched it yet, but I know she always does. But even if she didn't say a single word, just in her introduction as an ex-Muslim on Bill Maher was huge for us. Like, I don't know if people here understand how big of a deal that is for us ex-Muslim, for somebody to just use that word on such a high level. But that's why we use it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also because of the severity of the punishment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the many challenges that we have to deal with.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful speech. As you mentioned, the power of the social media and stuff to advertise the values. I see that even Twitter, like, playing against these values when they mention some of them. But for example, you have the God account always there, but when you create Allah account, always they shut down. Such an account in Arabic. Always they shut down Twitter accounts, Allah or anything. So what should be done to
Right. So the challenge with that is that Atheist Republic, for example, has been removed by Facebook 3 times so far, and we managed to come back 3 times. I always tell people Jesus died and came back once. We did it 3 times. But the thing is that every time it happens, people say like, "Oh, what happened to free speech?" And that's not a free speech violation. Even though I would benefit from playing the victim and be like, "Oh, our free speech was violated." It's censorial. It's censorship. It's not a free speech violation. The whole idea of the way people understand free speech is that the government doesn't come limit your speech, right? Not a company like Facebook. That's their environment. They get to do whatever they want. So, for example, when we say free speech, it doesn't mean that I get to go to your platform and say whatever I want. You get to be like, no, this is my platform. I decide who says what on my platform. If I go inside someone's church or someone's mosque and then start yelling, you guys are stupid, God is fake, God is a lie, they get to kick me out. You know, if I'm doing it in the street, they don't get to do anything, as long as I'm not harassing anybody. But if I go inside their environment, I can't just walk into your dinner table, like when you're having dinner with your family, and start reading, the Communist Manifesto, and you were like, you guys have to just sit there and listen to me. And I knew, you're going to call the cops. This is your house. So, Facebook, that is a private company, that's their environment, that's their platform. But the thing is that even if it's not a violation of free speech, it's still a really bad idea. It's censorial. We don't have to claim that it's a violation of free speech for us to fight against it, because we just have to show them that this is a PR nightmare. But it's not working that much, right? I mean, we get to come back because we're a giant page, and we make a huge noise every time they remove us, and they bring our page back. But there's a lot of smaller accounts that they never come back. The reason why this is very dangerous is because it's not a government, because it's a private company. Now most of conversations are now happening on private company platforms. There are more people right now having discussions online than offline. Right now, more people are debating online than offline, and it's happening on these companies' platforms. So if it made any sense for us to have free speech laws, because why do we have free speech laws? What was the point of them? Because governments had too much influence over what we get to say. So now we have these private companies, and they have more say in what we get to say than any government anywhere in the world. So yeah, free speech was great, but now we need something new. It's not a violation of our free speech, but it needs to be a violation of something that we come up with, because we cannot let global conversations on a global scale be, decided by a few private companies. I mean, the fact that they're private companies is true that it's not breaking any laws and it's any violation, but there needs to be a response to it. And there seems to be 2 different responses to this. Either we come up with an internet bill of rights, where these companies become, if they keep on deciding what we get to publish, then they're publishing companies, right? And they need to, and they are now accountable for everything that is on their platform. I don't think they want to go there. I don't think Facebook and Twitter and YouTube want to be held accountable for everything that's on their platform. So the other alternative is for them to be treated like utility, like the phone company, or consider access to social media a right or something like that, right? And therefore remove all form of censorship away from them, right? Everybody has and I think they would like that. if legally they cannot censor anything on their platform, then their advertisers cannot come and hold Facebook accountable. Advertisers can't get angry with Facebook or YouTube or Twitter because they're like, well, what do we want to do? It's the law, right? So they should welcome that. The problem with that is that it will be an actual violation of free speech if the government comes and says, I don't know, it could be seen as too much government control. If the government comes and says to Facebook, you have to allow this speech. So you're introducing a new law, but then you might be going against the original one, and we also don't want the government to have that much control over companies, right? Or private companies. And I don't know what the alternative answer is to just use a more sort of left. This is more of a economically left-wing approach because you're getting the government involved to tell these private companies. A more economically right-wing approach would be to break them apart, right? One thing when it comes to free market capitalism is that you have to encourage competition. And free market capitalism doesn't mean the government doesn't have any role. It means it has a specific role. So one of them is to make sure it creates an environment where there's a lot of competition. And these companies, because they're monopoly, they're not afraid of people abandoning their platform because we don't like their community standards. But if they were breaking apart into smaller pieces, maybe they would be afraid. Like every time you get the platform from Facebook, it's not that big of a deal. There's so much competition to Facebook. I don't know which one of these two methods are the best. I don't know if any of them are going to happen, but something needs to happen. I'm open to either one.
Okay, next question.
I'm going to say briefly why I don't share your optimism that the regressive left will come to its senses and why everything that's happening makes sense. And it's called the long march through the institutions. It's the cultural Marxists' long march through the institutions. They've taken over the schools. They're taking over the legal systems in some ways. They're taking over universities. They've pretty much taken over Google, which is why Google is becoming, Google and YouTube and stuff is becoming so censorious.
Right.
If you think in terms of, and why, why you were saying they don't care about the Uyghur or the Muslim Uyghurs being killed in China, but they get very upset at Islamophobia here. That's another weapon term used by the cultural Marxists. It's basically, they're all battering rams against the West, which they want to knock down the capital West and bring us the Marxist paradise.
But why do you think that's going to last forever? The reason why I think the regressive left is not going to keep going forever is because their method is very self-destructive, right? Like they can't seem to keep their own, survive their own standards. Their leaders they're constantly taking shots at their own leaders. They keep on raising the bar of what's on what's not acceptable until none of them can meet the standards. So I think the reason why I think it will not last forever is because of the self-destructive nature of it. I'm not saying it's not it's a huge threat, and even if they're not everlasting, I think the damage that they cause is everlasting. But I don't know, maybe you're right. I hope you're not right. But yeah.
The more I think about it, the more it makes sense that this is what's happening.
Yeah, but even if you're right about what's happening, what makes you think it's going to last forever?
Well, nothing lasts forever, I guess,
right.
But it's going to, it's certainly affecting our society now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That reporter Megan Murphy in Vancouver gets taken off because she said he's a man about this Jessica Yannick or whatever, or somebody, they're monitoring speech. It's none of their business.
So the thing is that as a meme, Islam is a very powerful and ancient meme that survives attacks. Right. Christianity is, I think some far-right ideologies, the reason why I'm more afraid of that is because they are a lot more, this is a new thing, this whole regressive leftist, right? It doesn't have history, it doesn't have the experience, and it's a virus that, it's not a super virus, you know what I mean? Like Islam, I think it's a super virus. Christianity, I think, is the super virus. They keep on surviving and coming back stronger every time they're being challenged. And I just don't see this ideology. I think it's just very immature, and I don't think it will, it's just so self-destructive that it can't last. Again, these are the battle between memes, right? And I just look at them as which memes are stronger. And this whole point of this speech was to introduce an Enlightenment meme to go against these other stronger memes. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, next question.
Thank you for your enlightening speech. So I think the Holocaust happened and Jews were, terribly affected. When they came out of that, they got educated, they helped each other, and they become like a successful nation. However, I'm just curious where you got your stats and you said Judaism promotes superiority.
Yes.
Something to that effect.
What's the question?
That you said that Judaism promotes
Yeah, race supremacy
Where did you get that?
from scripture. It's in the Bible. They're the chosen people by God, and also in the Talmud, where everybody else is supposed to be slaves to the Jews, but at the end of times. That's in their scripture. It's not what Jewish people believe. It's Judaism. Again, I'm not saying nothing against, like, for example, just to make this clear, because this is a lot of people are gonna clip these parts out, by the way. The Bible, the Christian Bible, tells you that women should not be in any position of authority. They should not teach, they should remain silent, they should be obedient, right? Most Christians don't believe that. Most Christians, if you ask them, do you think women should be able to teach? They're like, yeah. So the idea of, if we can see how Christians and the Bible believe different things, why do people not see that Judaism and what Jews believe are also very different, right? Even religious Jewish people, if I go talk to them and be like, hey, do you think I should be your slave at the end of time? They're going to be like, what the fuck? They're going to be like, no, I'm not talking about Jewish people, I'm talking about the scripture, the ideology. It's ridiculous, it's barbaric, it's ancient, it needs to die. This is nothing about the people. Again, and also Muslims, again, if you go just find random Muslims, do you think I should beat my wife if she's disobedient? They're like, no, go get some help. What the hell's wrong with you? Most Muslims don't think that you should be able to beat your wife if she's disobedient. But it says so right in the Quran. A lot of people, people think like, well, if it's in their religion, of course they're going to follow it. Well, no, they don't. Most of the time they don't. It's very separate. We're talking about completely separate things. Does that make sense? Did I even answer your question? Yeah, okay.
Okay, next question. Yeah, everybody try to speak up.
I just want to say I agree with almost everything you said. I just want to take issue with one of the smallest of your points.
Okay.
So I recognize this is not. So is the bit about the Uyghurs and the fact that we pay more attention to what happened in Christchurch with the killing by white supremacists than we do with what the Chinese were doing to the Muslims there.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I think there's reasons for that. First of all, we don't have as much information. The Chinese government's been very good about shielding that from us. And as we did what happened in Christchurch. Secondly, always care more when it's a small number of people who are affected than when it's larger groups, large bodies of people, because it wasn't until we saw that photo of Alan Kurdi on the beach until we cared about what happened to Syrian refugees. We cared about small groups more than big groups. And third, if our kid is kicking a dog, we're going to go in and we're going to stop the kid from kicking the dog and probably tell him off, maybe we'll spank him. But if our neighbor's kid or some stranger's kid is kicking a dog, we are going to be more reticent to step in and jump in. We don't know how that neighbor or that person's going to respond. Maybe they're going to punish the kid even more because we jumped in and tried to, take an issue with it. So I think for those three reasons, I want to give us a little bit of a break for how we act.
Okay, first thing I want to make it clear that the response to the New Zealand shooting, I'm not saying it should have been, I know you're not saying that, but I just want it not to be a misunderstanding. I don't think there should have been a smaller response. I think that I'm not asking for people not to respond to shooting of innocent people in a mosque. I'm just wanting more of a response other places as well. I'm not suggesting that was too much of a response. In fact, I wish there was a bigger response than whatever response, So I'm not asking for people not to pay attention to white supremacists killing Muslims. I hope nobody thought that. I was just trying to bring also more attention to other ways Muslims are being attacked. When it comes to it being hidden, I think it's not the China. First of all, that whole thing with China is not hidden. It's on the news, right? People know that. That Chinese are in camps and Muslims are in camps in China. It's huge. Everybody should be able to have access to it. And it's not just that. And that's just one example. Like the fact that Muslims are being attacked and being treated like second-class citizens in India, for example. That's all over the news. Like this is not something that anybody can hide from you. It's everywhere. So it's, with regards to the first point that it's being hidden, it's not. It's public information. When it comes to it being small, us relating to it more, I mean, imagine if in United States, for example, we took some Muslims and we didn't like something that they were doing that was Islamic, and you tied them up and you dragged them into the street, like 4 or 5 of them, and then you set them on the ground and you start beating them while recording it on your phone. I think that would be international news if it was happening. This happened in India. This was not that many people heard about it. Again, it's small, 4 or 5 people, right? So even if it's small, it doesn't seem to get much attention if it's not in the U.S. or New Zealand. So even small examples is not getting attention. And this was on the news, not hidden by anybody. We covered it. When it comes to us caring about our people, I don't see. I mean, what makes them people in New Zealand our people?
It's not that it's because we talk to them more. We have more interaction with them. We have the ability to go to them, to New Zealand and say, hey, you guys, what you're doing is wrong. Look what happens when you do that with China. They imprison our people. I mean, we have a culture that a common, I mean, not a common culture, Canada's cultural country, but I think that the way that we, view the world, we have more in common, sort of generally, with New Zealand and Canada than we do with the
Canada and the United States talk to India more than they do to New Zealand, right? There's more relationship. And when it comes to culture, we're talking about Nazis and white supremacists. So those are the specific people that have done those attacks. I don't think we share much culture with them, right? I mean, we're talking about specific individuals, right? The individuals in India that attack Muslims and the white supremacists that is attacking Muslims in New Zealand, we don't share any culture with either one of those people, right? And it's not location-based. Like when it comes to atheist activists in India that also fight for gay rights, women's rights and stuff, I think those people share my culture in India more than a regressive leftist in Canada or a white supremacist in New Zealand, right? So I see that person in India as more our people than that person in New Zealand. So I think that when it comes to spreading these values, we shouldn't discriminate. I think these are values that belong to the whole world, and given how we see countries can change so fast, I mean, I don't think we should be picky about where we are sensitive about these values being under attack, right? I think we should be. I mean, think about it. Iran, for example, went from a country that the only country in the world where hijab was illegal in public, to the only country in the world where hijab was mandatory for everybody, including non-Muslims and foreigners, for everybody, within one generation. There are people that are alive that there were people that lived through both of that. To be living in a country where hijab was illegal to a country where hijab was mandatory for everyone. If you look at Germany, we went from a country where that was gassing people based on their race, to a country that says maybe we shouldn't have any filters for our borders. No, because that's too racist. We wouldn't want, we have people that were living for both of that, right? So, given how it seems like change could happen so suddenly, I don't think that we should be like, okay, these countries seem to understand us, and these countries, we have a harder reach to them. I think that dramatic changes could happen if we just allow it and if we reach out to everybody and everybody. We don't know where it's going to work, so let's just spread it everywhere and attack bad ideas everywhere. Does that make sense?
Next question.
Hi. I'm just curious to know what, first of all, I hope you know about the Quebec Bill 21. You heard about that?
Which one is that now?
It's about the secularization of the government.
Right, okay. It's about the crosses and the hijab in public employees.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all religious symbols, basically, for government workers.
Yes.
So
he would be the best person to talk about that at some point. Yeah.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to know your opinion about it.
Well, he changed my opinion on that. I mean, that's a much more detailed conversation. I think, my position was that I was against telling women, I'm against, for example, I'm against the hijab, right? But I also support people's right to wear the hijab, right? And I don't think those two positions are contradictory, right? You could be against what it stands for while also being for people's right to choose whatever they want to wear. As long as it's not a security threat, like if people make the argument that covering your face is a security threat, and if they can show that it's a security threat, then it should be banned. But if it's only for that reason, if it's not for other reasons. But when it comes to public employees, I couldn't see why you can't wear that, because the argument is, again, you could clarify, the argument is that if a government employee is wearing that, the government is taking an active position in promoting being outside of a religion. And I thought, like, no, I don't see that. I thought, like, if somebody is wearing like a Metallica shirt that working, that doesn't mean the government is endorsing that Metallica. But again, it's different from, I guess it's very different from religion. I think if I am, if I'm, a black person, and then my cop shows up and they're wearing a KKK, pin or something, I'm going to be like, I don't know if I'm being protected here properly or not, right? So I guess it's the same thing if you're like ex-Muslim, or if you're have anti-religious views and you feel, I don't know. The thing is that it's not I thought if you tell a woman that she's not allowed to wear the hijab while they're working, I was like, how is that helpful? Because they still have that ideas, like you're not actually removing the ideas from them if they're not wearing the hijab. In fact, you might be even hiding it, right? And you don't even, now you'll be even more afraid, because if you tell the cop, if somebody is a KKK member and they're a cop, maybe you want them to wear the pin so you could know what their views are, so you could be like, can you send me a different cop? Now that they don't have the pin, maybe it's a bigger issue, it's a harder issue to recognize as a problem. But I guess it wasn't about that individual, it's about the symbolism and what, again, this is something that I think he would be able to explain much better because he has thought about it a lot more. But it's about you as a civilian understanding that your government is completely unbiased, right? I think is that a fair point? Is that the main, do you want to give him the microphone?
Do you want me to comment?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, sure, thank you. It's important for government employees, when they're on the job, to present a neutral image. For example, there's already a law in Quebec which prevents civil servants from being from wearing wearing political symbols when they're on the job. I consider commercial advertising, political advertising, and religious advertising, they should all be, there should be a lid put on that for people who are on the job.
Right.
In the public services. If I could read a brief comment from one of our members
Okay.
on this issue.
Is the mic working?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's not.
Okay. If I attend a federally or provincially funded service, I do not wish to be served by someone who visibly belongs to a group which holds enmity towards me. As a member of the populace, I consider myself an employer of those who work for those institutions, federally or provincially funded services. And as such, I have the right to request a dress code which does not display enmity towards customers of that service. As examples, the person seeking a marriage certificate should not have to face our employee who might be wearing a button saying, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Or as a Jewish member of a family ravaged by the Holocaust should not be faced by a clerk adjudicating land zoning bylaws wearing a black swastika on a white circle on a red armband. Thus, the employer, the member of the public in this case, represented by the government, has the right to insist that our employees not display symbols which have in the past or currently continue to represent membership in groups which have enmity to the customer, or which supports ongoing sectarian violence and evidence of
All right, okay, just to be clear though, this is only about government jobs. This is about separation of church and state. This is not about any other job, right? Like it should be, even if our line is we don't want religion, any form of religion, and we have to be consistent with it. Like it's not about Islam, it's about any religion or in government. But obviously, any other employer cannot have that role, right? In private.
Well, it applies only to the government. This law.
Yeah, I know. Like if we want to support this law, we also have to be very aggressive about the fact that we do not want not only not to have this law for private companies. In fact, we want something exactly the opposite. It should be legal for any private employer to have that role for their employees, right? Does that answer your question?
On this topic, I am a retired civil servant, and I think in a democratic society, only the state has to be secular. If you are asking individuals whether they work for the state or not to be secular, then we're no longer a democratic society. For as long as the individual does not facilitate their religion, you are there to get a driver's license. The job of that government employee is to stamp your card or to say go this way or go that way. Then I don't see how, whether you wear a hijab or a niqab or whatever, has to do with your duty, unless you start telling them that they have to become Muslims or Christians or whatever, because that law in Quebec is going to be shut down under the charter.
Is there a question for Armin here?
So, yes, my question for you is that as somebody who grew up in Nigeria in the 50s and 60s, when there was no religious fundamentalism, I was raised a Muslim. But while we were growing up, and my father was an imam at the time of his death.
Wow.
Okay, when I was growing up as children, we couldn't wait for the Islamic festivals to go and visit relatives. So we get food and sweets and money, and at Christmas time, we're out caroling. So the religion for us was liberal. But since the economic downturn in Nigeria, everything has become so fundamental.
Right.
So that all the experience that you had in Iran is now prevalent in Nigeria.
Right.
So my issue is, are you conflating religion as liberally practiced? By the way, I took from my upbringing the values that I bring to humanism, honor, integrity, etc., etc. And instead of believing in some Quran or some Bible, I now believe in empirical evidence, scientific evidence, and what have you. My question to you is, are you conflating religious fundamentalism with just religion as a guide for one's life, as a faith on which people anchor certain behaviors?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. Am I conflicted? Do you understand?
I believe the question was, are you conflating religious fundamentalism with people that use religion in a less fundamentalist way to guide their lives?
Yes, just a faith to say, I'm a good Christian, therefore I don't abuse my children, or I don't do all the positive aspects that religion may teach one, as opposed to fundamentalism.
There is no positive things that religion teaches. Muslims are good people because they're good people, not because they follow Islam. Christians are good because they're good people, not because they follow Christianity. There's not a single thing in these religions that are worth keeping. In fact, good people are used to sell religion. When a Muslim is doing good things and they have good values and they're following a good way of life, and when a Christian is doing that, or when a Jew or a Hindu, please give the credit to that individual. Don't try to use them as a way to sell barbaric ancient ideologies that need to die. If I see a Muslim that is knitting, I don't think, okay, then therefore knitting is Islamic. If I see thousands of Muslims that enjoy watching Game of Thrones, I don't think that watching Game of Thrones is an Islamic value. So, for the same reason, when I see Muslims supporting gay rights, women rights, democracy, secularism, I don't reduce Muslims to just Muslims and nothing else. I don't think like they're doing those things because of Islam. They're doing those things in spite of Islam. And most of the people, when you see these people that are supporting these values, you have to figure out what are the source of these values. The reason why, when you look at a Muslim, is they're much more than just Muslims. Just like the rest of us, we're influenced by many sources of influence. Where Muslims do not just read the Quran, in fact most of them never read the Quran, and follow it. Muslims are influenced by the podcasts they listen to, the books that they read, their parents, their co-workers, their classmates, and a lot of these ideas are contradictory and they're competing with each other, right? And when you see people following better models, is because of competing ideas against religious values that has influenced them more than religious values. And those sources of influence are the ones that need to be given the credit to. When Muslims and Christians do good things and we're like, oh, therefore Islam is good and Christianity is good, we're ignoring the real sources of influence on their lives and giving credit to ideas and books and scripture that have always been against these values, have always made it more difficult for us to promote these values. So, and this is the whole point of this speech, was to realize the source and give credit where credit is due, and not give credit to Islam, and not give credit to Christianity.
Thank you. I'm Iranian, and I grew up in Iran. In support of Armin's speech, he talks about religious state. But I want to get your attention in different angle. Imagine you are not non-believer, you don't believe in any religion, and you are a woman in Iran, or any country is controlled by religious state. Is more under pressure, is more difficult life they have it. By the government estimate, more than 1 million women in Iran, every year they arrested because they don't want to have a hijab and they don't want to follow the religious law. We have to see in this angle too. Women under any religion is not equal. They know women as second class in society. So my question is, you are organization that talking about how religious is affected on people's life. What is, beside the speech, beside all this conference that you are, what is your next step, next plan to show people how the religion is affected very dangerously on people's life?
So one method that we're experimenting with, which you're familiar with, is to get people in the streets, right? So we did that with Sohail Arabi, and which you were a part of that. Sohail Arabi right now is in jail in Iran for, it's been 7 years I think now, right? For insulting Prophet Muhammad on Facebook. And he did it anonymously, but they figured out, and he was on death row. And because of a lot of activism and people raising attention, he got off death row. But after 2 years of his case getting attention, that people forgot about him. And as soon as people forgot about him, his mistreatment went up, which shows that our attention to the case matters. Because a lot of people think like all these protests and stuff like that, they don't matter. But we have enough data to show that they do make a difference. So they tortured him. They beat him in prison. He had to go to the hospital, but they didn't have room for for him in the hospital. So even though he needed treatment, he didn't get the treatment he needed. And even after all these years, to add to all his misery, his mom, even though the rest of us forgot about him, his mom was the only one that was constantly still trying to get him out, and his mom went missing. So they got his mom as well. But then we realized this is one of the cases that is worse than a lot of other cases, and it's getting zero attention. When I started taking his case seriously, I looked, and there were, for 2 years, there was no articles about him in English. Everything I could find was in Persian. So for 2 years, nobody was even covering. He was completely forgotten. He was just left in prison to rot. So we like, okay, this is a case that needs attention, and what we're trying to do is to get people on the street, and the Atheist Republic Ottawa Council was involved as well, so thank you for that. And people, we had a hashtag Free Sohail. We told all our members around the world to please get out and make a specific day, a day that we get to the street. I did that in London in front of Iran's embassy. We recorded it, and some great YouTubers picked it up. I don't know, I think you are familiar with Rationality Rules and Cosmic Skeptic. Also, Seth Andrews picked it up at Thinking Atheist. So Sohail's case got a lot more exposure, but it's still very small compared to what we want to do. We want to learn how we could get. The good thing about the fact that Rationality Rules and Cosmic Skeptic picked it up is because their main audience is the Generation Z, so this is the future of our movement. So if they see, because these are younger people that are mostly focused on consuming content on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, and the fact that they're being introduced to street activism, it's very important that there's other ways to do activism other than just on Diane and sharing posts. But we want to keep doing that. We want to see how, we want to learn. By the way, please help us if you have experience with this. We want to see how we could bring bigger crowds every time we do something like this. And also what we want to do is we want to build connections and with the media, reporters, like smaller reporters that are easier to build a connection with. to next time when we do an event like this, we have people some journalists there to cover it. Eventually, if it keeps growing and we get bigger crowds out, we're hoping to get in touch with local politicians. Local politicians are always easier to get a hang on than bigger ones. And get them to come and say something, support something, say something against the country that is abusing blasphemers or atheists around the world. And hopefully keep increasing the size of the crowd, keep increasing the media, the journalists that we're bringing, hopefully keep making it from bigger and bigger publications, and hopefully one day we go from having smaller politicians, local politicians, to bigger politicians to make a statement. And again, this is very important because if you could get first the crowd out, then get media coverage, then get some politicians in Canada or United Kingdom or United States or Australia to make officially a statement against whatever the country is that we're targeting, like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Bangladesh, Pakistan, then what we're doing is we're introducing a cost to these countries going after atheists. Right now, there's no cost. Right now, if you go after Muslims, there's a reaction. There's a major reaction. When you go after Christians, like in Egypt, for example, the churches, they react. They organize, they raise money. Good, and rightfully so, because you shouldn't attack Christians because they're Christians. When you go after the Jews, the people are there. People raise money, people raise awareness. But when you go after atheists, when you go after blasphemers, there's silence. It's silence, and there's no cost for going after atheists, and that's why governments feel very safe to go after atheists. What we want to do is we want to become that cost. We want to become that noise that right now doesn't exist. Even if it's small, we have to start somewhere. Hopefully one day we'll become much louder.
Recently, I started reading the book, the very controversial book, The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. Anyone who knows about the Salman Rushdie affair knows that he got a lot of death threats for writing that book because he satirized Islam, basically with Islamic religion,
right,
faith. I'm a strong believer in the right to read, but recently, I saw an article in the UK Independent that was saying this guy wrote it. He's an atheist, relatively liberal, but he said that he wanted that book banned in Britain because he defended Muslims and defended the Islamic community. My question is, what are your thoughts on people who ban books even though they may be non-religious themselves? They weren't banned because of the times of religion.
I mean, for the sake of Muslims, they should avoid talking about banning books, because the first books that would have to go for hate speech would be the Quran and the Bible. Right? I mean, you don't go there, because I could find more offensive things. And I mean, think about if you just take the Quran and replace the word kafirun, which is most of us here are unbelievers, and replace that with Jews, and try to publish that book. You know, good luck with it. That's a hate book. That book would be considered a hate crime. The way that the Quran talks about us is extremely offensive, extremely hateful. So, and I support the rights of Muslims to publish the Quran and promote it. Why can't we expect the same thing from them? So, I mean, it is scary. I don't know what, I mean, you're asking what my opinion is. Obviously, it's ridiculous. Any book, one good, you know, right in Canada, you can go buy Mein Kampf on Amazon, right? It's great. I mean, how much more anti-fascistic can you be than when, you know, here's the thing. There was this, the gay pride parade was protested, there was counter-protesters to the gay rights activists at Pride by Nazis in the United States. I forgot which city this was. And the neo-Nazis showed up, and the police in the United States was protecting the neo-Nazis against the crowd, because the crowd wanted to attack them. And a lot of people were offended, and like, what happened to the United States where neo-Nazis are being protected by our police? And some people were like, oh, my grandpa fought the Nazis and he would be turning his grave right now and all that stuff. And I'm like, why would you, isn't that a great thing? How could you show that you have defeated Nazism greater in a much more significant way than showing that, look, the people that represent the values completely the opposite of what the United States is supposed to represent. The people that we destroyed, the people that we defeated in war, we let them speak. That's how free we are in this country. That's how you show that you have defeated fascism, because it's exactly the opposite of fascism. By letting everyone speak. That's how you defeat Nazism, by showing how much better you are than them. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's the answer you expected. I'm against banning any kind of book. Any kind of book.
Hi, Armin. Thank you, first of all, thank you for your lecture. It's really very, very engaging. I just wanted to circle back to that comment that was made regarding the juxtaposition between the Christchurch shooting as opposed to Muslims being mistreated or killed or anywhere else in the world. And as someone that was not born here in this country but pretty much grew up since the tender age of 9 in Canada, I've faced that a lot of times, and I think now it's kind of coming up to the upfronts. I had seen a social experiment where there was a man that was being violent towards a woman in the streets. I think it was in New York, and people would stop him. People would intervene. People would actually stick up with the woman and say, "Hey, you can't do that." And they just replaced that woman now with a Navabi or a hijabi woman, and did the same exact experiment. And much less people were intervening. Much less people were coming at the aid of that woman. And I think it kind of takes us back to the, I think the coined phrase is the bigotry of lowered expectation, which I think is very prevalent. And I think we kind of have to bring it up to the surface more often than not to say that, yes, and I think when we see people getting outraged at things like Christchurch shooting, and not as much in China or anywhere else in the world, people basically almost are okay with expecting it from brown people, or to be a bit savage. And I think that's something that I want to ask you in your works. Is it something that you also encounter, that bigotry of lowered expectations?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When you say that we expect more from them, why? So you're comparing a white supremacist to someone from India, and you're expecting more from the white supremacists? I mean, shouldn't you be expecting the least from a white supremacist? Why are you expecting more? Is it because they're white? Right? So it seems like you're being like the bigot here if you're expecting more from a white. I mean, this is why we judge people by some values that they support, not based on where they're born and based on their skin color. If people, well, people are from New Zealand, they're our people. What makes them our people, right? Like, it seems like there's something else going on here, right? So yeah, I think when it comes to expectations, I have very high expectations from people from Iran, or Saudi Arabia, or from India, or from Nigeria, or from Somalia. And if you expect less, you are the bigot here. You are the bigot, you have the lower expectation for people that you think shouldn't, it's just that's their culture. Yeah, but we experience that a lot, and I think that it's a bigotry that gets away, it's a kind of bigotry that gets away by acting as if it's actually anti-bigotry, which is pretty sad. But yeah, no, I experienced that a lot. Yeah.
Okay, we have time just for one more question before we wrap up.
Yeah, on the same topic, I think the case of Chinese and the jailers, for instance, it basically is just a testament to our own cultural bias. Because, when we think of China, basically we think that, well, they had Tiananmen Square, things like this happen repeatedly over there. And basically, when something like this happens in New Zealand, you tend to, well, that raises eyebrows because we don't expect for stuff like that to happen in New Zealand. Same sort of thing happened in Norway. Remember when that guy blew up in the island with all those kids that were basically children of political figures, I guess, in Norway.
Right.
You know, it's something that you don't expect for to happen in Norway. I mean, it's just, you know, crazy, right? And I just wanted to relate a bit of a joke, I suppose. You can think of a class joke. Yeah. I have a question. I mean, why is it that we act the way we do? Or why do we have these cultural biases? I mean, they are, to a certain extent, you know, there's something supporting them, obviously. You know, I was just going to say that.
Right. So I understand that we don't expect them in some places, and we do expect them in other places. But that's why we need more attention to places we expect them. I mean, if the whole point is to reduce harm, then we should fight it in places where it's happening more. Right? So just because, so we say, okay, so we don't expect it here. We don't expect anti-Muslim discrimination here. We expect it over here. All right, but why would we? So we need to bring more attention to where people are being harmed the most. We need to talk about where people are being harmed the most. Just because something is unusual, that doesn't mean it deserves more attention. The attention, I understand that people are like that.
Yeah.
People are like that. Well, we're trying to tell them to change. The response should be based on, not based on how surprising something is. The response should be based on how much harm we're inflicting on the highest number of people. That would be a more rational way for us to respond to harm that is being caused. Like, if we kept on giving into that natural tendency that we have to respond stronger to what is surprising, then as soon as something becomes normalized here as well, then, well, like with school shootings, for example, right? It's normal now. People think it's a normal thing now. Is because it's not surprising, it's becoming more difficult to fight it because people just expect it. So I understand that that's something that people are like, it's naturally, but it's something that we have to fight against. We shouldn't let these things become normal.
We have to raise awareness.
Right. All right, that was it.
Okay. So that's pretty much all the time we have today. Thank you so much for coming out on a beautiful Sunday afternoon to hear Mr. Navabi speak and ask him some questions. If you have any more questions about our groups, could all the board members of Humanist Association of Ottawa raise your hands so people can see who you are? There we go. Okay, so if you have questions, you can ask us. I encourage you, if you haven't done so, to join Atheist Republic and join the Humanist Association of Ottawa. Our website is here. It's also on the banner over there. And we'd like to present Mr. Navabi with a small token of thanks.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just one quick final announcement. The next meeting of the Atheist Republic Ottawa Consulate is on October 25th at the Clock Tower Pub on Elgin Street. The topic of that meeting will be how to have impossible conversations. This is related to the book just now recently released by Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay. And yes, please click join, relate to the Atheist Republic Ottawa Consulate, and join for HAO as well. So thank you very much, and we'll have events like this hopefully more often soon. Yeah. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks. And I think some of us want to go to a pub afterwards, or we think, is Pub Italia a good idea for those that want to meet up and keep the talk going tonight? Okay, so those of you that are going to the pub, maybe let's try to, I can't go unfortunately, but try to get together. We're going to go to Pub Italia and keep the conversation going. Thanks a lot for coming again.
I think they have it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I will definitely look at it. Okay. right now with me, but I will.
Yeah. Send it to me here. Here's the email.
Okay. All right. Can I show this to our audience? Yeah.
I still maintain that talking more about theocracy. Because, when you talk about Judaism, I belong to a group called they agree totally what we're saying about Green Party and right wing. But they're also believing Jews. See what I mean? So it's like, because I was raised on the 5 pillars of Islam, and there was nothing wrong about that. But the other aspects of it, so this is what I'm saying. But on my own, I don't believe in Islam or Christianity or anything. I'm just saying there are aspects of it that to raise their children to do the right thing, as opposed to.
Well, I'm against using Islam to teach people to do the right thing, because I think there are better ways.
I think so too. And incidentally, I have this is for levity. What you said about most people are stupid. A wise person once said, if you have to choose between ignorance and stupidity, choose ignorance. It is curable. Okay. Yeah, so most people are ignorant. You have a card. I want to give to my
I don't have one with me.
independent Jewish voices.
If you search for online, you should be able to follow.
My name is Missy Blanchard. I was supposed to have been with you yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great work, great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Can I get your card?
I don't have a card with me right now, but it should be easy to find me online to reach out to me. It's very, on atheistrepublic.com. Just click on contact, and you should be able to reach me. Atheist Republic.
Hi. That's great. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I get you to?
Yes, for sure.
And then. I just found out at the last moment you were coming, and
Oh yeah, okay. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Following your podcast on possible skeptic, have you given a chance to read animal agriculture and the existence
I'm planning. Well, I'm doing vegan with it, but until I get, I'm planning to actually visit the farm. That's where I'm at to get more educated. I haven't.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I haven't yet, because ever since then I've been from one event to another. But that's my plan.
That's awesome. Okay, cool.
I just realized we are selling copies of our friend's book. I forgot to mention that. I think they're already sold out. Sorry, we're sold out. You missed me. Sorry about that, everybody.
And I didn't like. I think most of the arguments.
Also, we need to leave the room pretty soon.
I don't go.
We went a little over time, so. You might have a talk with Mr. Navabi from the city. We'll see.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One final, can we get a picture?
Oh yeah, of course.
It's okay. I'll just go over here. Would you be able to take a picture?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll take another one just to be. Okay.
Now I need to see. Thank you. Thanks.
Hi.
So we were just talking about the study idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that would be like a worthwhile thing to do? I would say like maybe I would people someone it's really important. Most of my experience is in the methodology. I've read a bunch of books, like yours and stuff, so I'm familiar, but
just be careful with some people will exaggerate. So I don't know how you're going to adjust that.
So what I would need to do is just get the actual text that people had sent them as threats, and then I meet with another researcher. We would each independently code them, and it's very methodologically rigorous. And then you just come in an unbiased way of just describing like.
Can I set up a meeting between you and me and I'm not saying it about this project?
Yes.
Okay. What was your name again?
Conrad. I can like message you through the secretary Facebook, or that would be...
No, that's the best place. Patreon, as a patron,
because through Patreon, is it possible?
Yes.
Oh, good. I didn't know.
That's something I will make.
Okay, good. Good. The timeline for this would still be probably, take us a while to get it. Yeah. There's no rush. And I could also send you a couple of other articles I published. And peer-reviewed journals and stuff where I did a similar methodology to what I think it is for this. So you have a very quick idea of what that looks like. Cool. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Yes, thank you.
Hey there, big fan. Can I get a picture with you?
Yes, of course.
This wonderful woman is offered too.
I think your eyes are closed there. I think it closed there.
I'm fine with that, to be honest.
I think
that's fine. Cool, awesome. Thanks a lot. I actually would love to talk to you for a few minutes. I also don't want to take up too much time. So let's stick around for a little bit longer.
I'll be around here.
Okay.
I'll be around.
Thanks.
Hi. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Great. I'm actually deprogramming myself right now.
Okay.
Christianity. And, but I'm also a writer. So I come up with a lot of people in the writing community, they're all regressive.
Right.
And I had a sort of falling out with them. And, I've been distancing myself ever since the punching dogs thing. A white guy, basically. They were punching because they didn't agree with them. Anyway, that's what I'm struggling with.
Well, don't give up on that.
I know, I'm trying. I'm not giving up on that. I just don't talk about certain things because it's not straight. We'll be both coming around. I would love to get there.
Also, I think I managed to befriend many fundamentalist Muslims, even ones that argue that I should die under an Islamic regime, right? Even that kind of Muslim, I still managed to befriend. So I don't, even though I speak against regressive leftist views, I don't think, I still try to, it's just a disagreement. That's what I'm trying to show them. I mean, we can still be friends.
A lot of them are not that way, though. They're if you believe in anything like this, you can't be my friend.
Yeah, it's mostly them. It's mostly them that don't want to talk to me. But I don't actively try to stay away from them. In fact, I would love to be able to have discussions, explain discussions.
But it's like with the Omar Khadir settlement, right? They think, that's right, but they don't understand how it can be wrong to go and punch someone who has been proven to be not.
A lot of examples.
Anyway, it's great meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming here.
Wait, are you private? Oh, sure.
It's not on that way.
In the closet. Well, do you think you will be able to
Can we get the, oh, that's still, we need our sign.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's move it around.
Okay. Can we move this out of the way? Is that still recording?
Armin should be in the
Yeah,
middle.
okay, guys, I'm gonna stop recording. Thank you guys for being part of this conversation. I'm gonna close. Everybody has left, so I'm gonna.
Is everybody on?
No, it's finished. I'm gonna.